What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video. Before we get into it, remember to like, comment, subscribe. We're giving away a booster box of Destin Rivals once we hit 2,000 subscribers, and that's going to be given away to a random comment on one of the videos created this year. But let's get right into it. I wanted to make this video Monday, but I got caught up doing something, and I like to do a video the weekend after something gets released in terms of Magic and Pokemon. But talk about Edge of Eternities. It's out. I got a chance to draft it. It's a great set. Um, I don't know. Magic's just been killing it this year. Well, in the last couple sets, non-universes beyond. Because we had Tarkir, which was an amazing set, and then we have Edge of Eternities, which is also I feel like it's an amazing set. I think it's a fun set. The space, the the fetch lands, it's just like I don't know. I love the void ability. Overall, I think it's a slam dunk set. But with that being said, there's some things like I'm surprised, because if we go to Tarkir, I believe those boxes are still on the cheaper end. Yes, there's 329, and personally, I think Tarkir is a better set. This does have like fetch lands, which normally upholds the set's value. But let's get into the collector displays. So originally when we talked about this, it was like I think it was 450 at pre-release, and I thought that was way too high. I was like, this is not a $450 collector booster box right off the bat anyway. Like I was thinking something more around like where we're at right now. Right now we're sitting at like 379, 380 is give or take where we're at. We were hitting the four somethings a little bit ago. So yeah, so 432, yeah. So it was at like 430 pre-release, and then once it released, like normally how Magic should be going and most sets should be going, the price goes down. Um, so right now we're chilling at 379, or let's say just 380. We're selling a decent amount a day, but yesterday we were today's the sixth. So it was chilling around like 400, but now we're slowly going down, and which is expected, and I think the price will go down. Um, I foresee it going a little lower, um, because I strictly think this was off the hype of Final Fantasy. I think these prices going this high and being going up this quickly is strictly riding off the coattails of Final Fantasy. And ultimately, what I was saying before, you have Final Fantasy, which is a juggernaut. And then, honestly, before this was even released, or the weekend this was released, we're getting Spider Man. We're getting Spider Man spoilers. So, and I think ultimately that's kind of what drove this price down because it's like people are already getting rid of this, getting their quick buck, and then want to get right into Spider Man. And I think that's why we also saw Spider Man increase, but at the same time they did release the Soul Stone, but that's a whole separate topic. So I just want to focus on Edge of Eternities. Um, because with no serialized card, which is it's fine. I personally am a preference to having serialized card in every set, just a smaller amount because I really think that helps the value and the long term gain of it. But it has to be a worthwhile um, serialized card. I don't think just slapping a random card with serialized number. I think it's kind of pointless. I don't think it adds any value. If anything, it will hurt the set and it will hurt serialized cards. But at the same time, I do see doing less serialized cards because that helps when it does have serialized cards in the product. But right now we're sitting at 380. I do think it'll go down, especially as we get closer to Spider-Man. I think we'll see a bigger bit of a dip. Um, these prices are going down as well. I mean, which I feel like also is to be expected. Um, because in the Magic universe, um, actually any card universe, the set comes out, prices drop. That's how it usually is. It's always been that case for as long as I've been into cards, more on the financial side. But as of recently, we saw Pokemon shoot up, and I feel like a lot of the Pokemon people came into Magic with Final Fantasy because they saw the value that was coming with Final Fantasy, and I do think they're here to stay for a little bit, at least for the Universe Beyond sets, which kind of sucks because I foresee this, you know, tainting regular Magic products. So what we're probably going to see is, we'll have a Universe Beyond set. For example, we have way too many this year, but let's say there's another Marvel um, set. Let's say there's a Fantastic Four set next year. Um, that will bring hype to Magic. That will bring hype to that set. But what we're going to see is, I feel like the surrounding products shoot up exponentially and in just like a unhealthy manner because people that don't know Magic are getting into Magic just for the hype of like a Marvel or some sort of universe beyond IP. And I think that's going to make the other Magic products more expensive when they don't have to be. Um, I just don't think these prices for non-universe beyond sets are really sustainable. I mean, by all means, I think a $350 collector booster box is a reasonable price, and definitely should go up over time, which is it's a fair assessment. They're limited in quantity, and you're not gonna once they're open, that's it. But to see what we're seeing now is just, in my opinion, just unhealthy for a non-universe beyond set. Because, in my opinion, a lot of the people that came in for Final Fantasy are not true Magic the Gathering players. I feel like they're just coming in to try to make money. Fair. It's a free market. It's what you're supposed to do in life. Whatever. It sucks. Um, but yeah, I don't think they understand Magic. So then I think this is a byproduct of that. People just buying into it, thinking it'll be a quick flip, making all this money, which some people probably did make, a couple hundred or $1,000. Probably got the box for like 300 or something, and they probably did make a little bit of profit. But I think the realization is the real money's in the IPs and the Universe Beyond sets. Because in my opinion, Magic's going to treat those cards better, treat those sets better. I think they will have better cards. I think they will have stuff to drive hype. For example, Spider-Man's getting the Soul Stone. Um, and I still think they're going to have serialized cards. They haven't announced it yet, but I think they're going to have some insane serialization. I wouldn't be surprised if it's for the Soul Stones. And then we had the Golden Chocobos. But I think even without the Golden Chocobos, I still think it would have been a slam dunk set. But I think the Golden Chocobos ultimately drove that price to what it is now, and they're selling for insane amounts. But I think that's for another video. But yeah, we're seeing a steady decline, which is fine, and it's to be expected. Um, I don't you know I definitely can foresee this turning into probably like 1800 for the case. Similar to, or maybe like 2000, similar to what Tarkir is at, because I think this is on par with Tarkir. I think they're both great sets. Um, I think this is slightly overvalued, and I think we'll see that in the coming weeks. It has solid cards. I think this is a really like, I love this card. 2200 though, I don't know. Don't love it that much. Only two sales, so it's like I'm sure you go on eBay and you'll see listings like that's a solid card. It just sucks because it's like at that point, what are you gonna do? Like I'm not gonna play with it. At that point, you just got to get a grade, and then it's like, what's the long term value of this? Like a PSA 10. Um, I don't know. I don't think Magic has that long-term value like a Pokemon does or something, because what we see a lot is they'll just reprint it in 4 to 5 years, or maybe in 3 years. Like there's a good chance they reprint it, and that's gonna bring the value down, and like so on and so forth. And that's what we've seen a lot with like Liliana the Veil and a bunch of those cards that were like $300 to $400, Termagoyf, and now they're like dirt cheap because they just keep reprinting it, and that's what they do. And I think that's why the IPs are more valuable, because they can't reprint those, or they could, but I doubt in the contract they get a kind of a win and go scenario. So you get to print a certain volume, they get a percentage, and there's no reprint. Would be my assumption. Um, so I think in the long term, those hold more value. You can get those graded. I think the grading itself, the graded cards, which in my opinion, Magic has never really been a that type of environment like Pokemon. It's never been, oh, I'll get this PSA 10 and it'll shoot up in value, and then it'll only increase in value over time because low population, or it's hard to get a PSA 10. But I just feel like that's not a Magic investment. Like we normally we don't do that. I definitely think it's more of just a single slash sealed. Um, but that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, obviously you have some of the old Magic cards that if you can't get a PSA 10, the value's there. But a lot of those are on the reserve list, so they can't be reprinted. So I think the printability determines things. And I think since there's really no more reserve lists, there's really no value to in the long term for some of these cards, unless they bring back the reserve list. But people are already talking the Universe Beyond cards are the new reserve list, which makes sense, and I don't disagree, and I don't think it's the worst idea. But I also think adding a reserve list would help Magic's economy even more. I think it would help collectability, and I think it's also nice to know Wizards won't print this into the ground. They're not going to use a card that they haven't printed in a while as the staple of a set just to bring in money. So I think with the IPs coming in, I think they can start doing that, because now they don't have to rely on like a Lotus Petal to drive the sales of a set. You can focus on good Magic sets, start creating a reserve list, stop printing so many of the good cards or the older cards, and then you have the IPs to really drive the financial side of things. I don't know. Magic's in a weird place right now. Um, Honestly, most card games are. Um, but I don't know. Um, it's hard to tell where this is gonna go because I know it was like teetering. Dropped all the way to like 380 and then shot back up to 400. I just foresee it going back down a little bit. I think the hype's kind of died down a little bit since the weekend, and I'll do another video in probably the end of the month or a month after this has been released. And I definitely foresee it being at like a 350 box. Definitely. Um, that's kind of my prediction. Because as we go on, probably the end of this month, we'll start getting more spoilers for Spider-Man. And once the hype for Spider-Man comes in, this hype's going to die down. People are going to start selling their boxes. People are going to start buying Spider-Man because Spider-Man's already going off the charts right now. So I think there's a lot to take in consideration for this price, and I do think in the short term it'll go down. But in the long term, I think it's a great set, and it'll eventually go up. So if you want to buy 379, go ahead and buy 379. I think holding out is the best option. I think there's a lot better sets coming out in terms of value that you can gain. It's just about getting in early at this point, which sucks, but that's the current state of Magic. But that's all I gotta really say about Edge of Eternities. I'm hoping things change a little bit and Magic does something a little different to help the value of non Universes Beyond, but only time can tell with that. But thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe to be entered in a giveaway. See you.